Yeah, bring it on in, bring it back on up. We're in North Carolina. Listen, we went live earlier, but we got to go live again because we just saw something. We just did a show on how the media manipulated, in Lula's case, in Brazil to create this false narrative. And since we live in the business, we went and watched Bernie and the Poor People's Campaign, and he ripped it up. But you caught some fugaziness, didn't you, fam?
Yes, I did. So I guess we can start by just posting the picture of what happened with MSNBC. So MSNBC just released this poll with Biden, Warren, Harris, Buttigieg, and Bernie Sanders is not there. Even Cory Booker's there, who nobody really has been crazy about. And they completely omitted Bernie Sanders. And we're having someone. Oh, okay. I just got word from my research team. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Todd. Research team.
They had Bernie was on there, but they had 4%. He had 4%, but they left him out. He was at 4% according to their poll, which we can probably assure if we go into that poll that they sampled a really small sample.
Yeah, but how come he has 4% and he's not even there and Booker's there with 3%?
Exactly.
Because once again, they want to manipulate what's going on. Yes. And when he was in South Carolina, guess what happened the other day? Niko House told us, how about 7 lawmakers endorsed him? And they put this poll up as he was killing it with Reverend Barber. Was he not, fam?
Yeah, he was absolutely killing it, and he should be right there after Buttigieg, exactly. So that to me just says this. Look, the mainstream media, it's not a joke. It's fake news. This is what empowers Donald Trump's base, because the Democratic Party is right in line with MSNBC and NBC and CNN and all these people because they fulfilled their narrative. Now, Fox has an entirely different narrative that fulfills that of Trump. But the fact is that they're all pushing for the oligarchy. At the end of the day, they're not for the people. They're giving you their own spin on their narrative. They're not there telling you the truth. So it is the job of the independent media to constantly be looking at these things, looking at what they put out. Because before, they got away with it. But now, we're all here to point it out. And that's why, this is why we do what we do. It's so important because we have to catch these people in their lives so people can finally start to see, hey, this isn't just us babbling on and on about the mainstream media and the establishment. This is actually happening in real time. This is reality. This is what we're dealing with here. And
a lot what we saw in this Poor People's Campaign has a lot to do with the way we look at each other, the way we deal with each other, the way we kind of unite together. And one of my favorite people, one of my heroes, Bishop Reverend Barber. I love the guy from North Carolina. He was one of the hosts of this event, and he got to ask Bernie the first question. Now, Bernie came out, he did his normal spiel. By the way, can you flash up that real quick, the 7 lawmakers in South Carolina? Because we want to show you we're not full of bullstein when we're saying some stuff. He got great endorsements in South Carolina that, Niko said, and he said, these were big endorsements. They're going to help put him over the top. So when MSNBC releases his Fugazi pool, right when Sanders is crushing it, and he was crushing it, let's just listen to Reverend Barber, what he says, whatnot, because this is something we have to have more conversations as we go along on the left, on the progressive side, on how we unite and how we move forward. Take a look.
We have been talking a lot today and over this campaign, Senator Sanders, about just that. We got to do the rhetoric, but the rhetoric has got to lead to organizing, got to lead to mobilizing, it's got to lead to voter registration. You've done that as well. We take this message where we connect systemic racism, and by that we don't mean cultural racism, we're talking about policy racism, like voter suppression, mass incarceration, resegregation, high poverty schools, attack on immigrants, attack on our native people. And then we connect that to systemic poverty, and we point out that concentration-wise, there are more people of color in concentrated poverty, but in raw numbers, there are more white people, 40 million more. Then we connect that to ecological devastation. We connect that to militarism and the war economy that's undermining in so many ways our ability to strive. And then we connect it to this false moral narrative because it's made its way all up the way in the White House where these religious extremists basically say if you're against a woman's right to choose, against gay people, for guns, for taxes, and prayer in the school, that somehow that is a great moral a platform which is contrary to so much. I say all that to say, we talk like that when we go to Eastern Kentucky. Same message. We talk like that when we go to Mitchell County, North Carolina, that's 99% white and 89% Republican. And people said we couldn't organize up there. and we proved them wrong. But we took just what I said, the same message, the truth about racism and the intersectional, and we say to people in counties like that, you want living wages? Yes. You want health care? Yes. You want more money for education, protect teachers? Just say, now, did you know that the people in your state and your Congress that are voting against these things primarily get their power because of racialized voter suppression and gerrymandering in the South? And that's how they get power. The question I have for you, and we've asked all the candidates this, is how will your candidacy, your presidency, and the way you present issues go south in communities that have been deliberately divided? Because if they ever figure out that if you white and can't pay your light bill, and you black and can't pay your light bill, we all black in the dark. So how will your campaign go to those places and fuse and help to build those coalitions, not by going around race and poverty, but by going through it and being honest?
Stop that real quick. Wow. I mean, let's, and for those of you who join us for the second time today on the MCSC network, we thank you so much. We hope that some of you can go over to the CONVO Couch YouTube and help us up. We like to get our numbers there. We know you enjoy watching us here, and those of you on our Facebook watching us for the second time, super fans like Rocky Bellinger, we love you too as well. So go do that. But what Reverend Barber is saying here, now Reverend Barber has always been a hero of mine because what he talked about right there about going into these areas that are primarily white and being able to go in there and organize, okay? And his last statement, what he said, fam, about you could be white, you could be black, but we're all black in the dark, meaning we have all this together, and we have to understand that they're suppressing the black vote to turn around and screw white people together. So, fam, do you have anything to add on that? Because I think this is like a question. We haven't gone in this area so far in this campaign. Bernie hasn't had the chance to talk about this the way he's going to be able to talk about this right now. This is a big moment, and this is the reason why we love Bernie Sanders, because he understands about creating a coalition between all people of all races and colors.
And he's precisely saying that he's going to be criticized, and he's going to be criticized wrongfully so, because he's not saying that, he's not glossing over the struggles of people of color. He's actually continuously mentioning that, as is Reverend Barber. But he is also recognizing that we are all suffering under this economic system that uses the tools, both of them, the economic oppression and the racial oppression, as arms and tools of this whole capitalist oligarchy. And that's precisely what they're pointing out. And that is the way. And I think Poor People's Campaign is one of the most powerful organizations out there that I wholly love and support, because they don't just focus on superficial tokenizing and virtue signaling type of organizing. They focus on economic justice. And when you tie social justice to economic justice, that is when you achieve change. And that's what Martin Luther King was doing right before he was killed. And that's why it's so dangerous, because other people like to organize where you're fighting about your color and all. That's all that matters. But that is not all that matters. We are not ignoring the struggles of people of color. We are not ignoring the struggles of the black vote. Bernie specifically said that. But we are also recognizing that the economic part hurts everybody. Everybody. It's all of us versus the 1%. And that has been Bernie's message entirely throughout his entire campaign, and even before that.
Hey fam, who started the Poor People's Campaign?
Do you want to answer that?
No, you have to, because I'm,
Martin Luther King Jr., fam.
Woman of color, baby. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now listen how Bernie slays this, y'all.
Well, I think that's an enormously important question. And in a sense, that's what we've been doing in this campaign. We have been going to parts of the country where Donald Trump won. And we say to those white workers, you think African Americans and immigrants are your enemies? Well, you got it backwards. Why don't you take a look at Wall Street, the drug companies, the insurance companies, and the military-industrial complex? What demagogues always do is try to divide people up so that their anger and their frustration comes out on minorities, people who have no political power. And Reverend, what our campaign is about is exactly the opposite. It is bringing people together and taking on Trump's divisiveness. He wants to divide us up. We have got to come together around a common agenda. Now, you're right. Truth is that percentage-wise, more African Americans and Latinos earn low wages. But numerically speaking, more whites earn low wages. More whites don't have health insurance. More whites can't afford to send their kids to college. So our job is to take on Trump's divisiveness and his racism and his xenophobia and his religious bigotry and bring people together around an agenda that works for all people. And that means that we should not be the only major country on earth that does not guarantee health care to all people. It means that we should not pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs or have more people in jail than any other country on earth. So to answer your question, the way we win and what this campaign is about is waging a political revolution which understands that not only do we have to win this election, but that's not enough. To transform this country, millions of people, black and white and Latino, Native American and Asian American, have got to come together to tell the people who have the power now that that power structure will no longer continue.
Thank you so much, Senator. And one
I'm saying just, he's going to get eaten up for it. It's Bernie Sanders. For those things, what he said right there when he was saying more whites, they're going to be sound bites taken apart. But he says it in a way that's just so bringing it together, saying despite your advantage, despite your privilege, you're still getting screwed economically in the long run anyways. So we have to come together. And when you speak of it in this way, and you speak it in the way a Reverend Barber does, where you're not just attacking and you're not separating, you're bringing us together because we all have the same common goal. We're all black when the lights are turned out. So let's come together and get this shit done. Recognize who your enemy is.
The enemy is the oligarchy. And that's the point Reverend Barber is making as well. It's not just Bernie Sanders. They're echoing each other's points, so to speak. Like, it's really nice seeing this because Bernie is going to get accused of being, an old white guy because of some of the statements he have made out of context. They're going to take these statements, like Pasta said, out of context. So be prepared for it. That is how they shape your mind. We are trying to tell you that what he said is entirely right, and what he is saying is actually it's transcendental, because this is how we come together, is how we see that we are all suffering under this oligarchy. Although we recognize that some are suffering more than others,
absolutely,
we are suffering all of us against it. And it's so hard for people to accept this without getting triggered or without, talking about things that get us more divided. And we need to stop that. That is going to hand Donald Trump the election. That kind of attitude where we're pointing fingers as to see who's the more woke one in regards to talking about race completely loses the point, because we're so busy calling each other out on the verbiage of it that we're not listening to the core of the message, which is this. And that is an important message that has been going on since the beginning of the civil rights movement. And this is where we must go in order to defeat Donald Trump, because you're not going to get the votes in the general with a message that's only talking about everybody being a racist Trump supporter. You have to go into those areas. Hillary Clinton did not do that, and she lost in states where Bernie Sanders won. Yeah. And that's something we can't deny.
We all have to get together and fight for the pink dolphins, because if the pink dolphins die, then we die. And that's the most important thing. We're not just in a fight. Thank you. We're in a fight for a struggle for us as a species, as human on our planet. Because the more we stay divided, the more the oligarchs get more and more powerful. The more they go into the rainforest and chop down trees and drill for oil, all for a profit, while fighting each other. Let's come together, like Reverend Barber says, and let's defeat the common enemy.
Absolutely.
But we have to understand who the common enemy is. And a lot of times it's not your neighbor. And your neighbor might be misled, but we have to learn how to talk to our neighbor, so therefore we get it straight. We don't attack our neighbor, because we're all suffering the same.
Exactly.
Sorry, fam.
No. And who doesn't do a good job at this? Kamala Harris we're gonna see how terrible she does it this
Oh
time.
my God. It's just that, fam, when you get a person who's never been an activist, who's never gotten the streets, who's never marched with people, and if she's done, she's only done it for a photo op. When she walks out, she avoids questions from independent journalists. She just got blinkers on. She did it at Lawrence Steiner's, when Lawrence Steiner went out there and protested her. She walked by people, journalists, like they weren't there. She did it at the convention. She's all platitudes. So when she says stuff, it's just hollow as can be. Do we have a little, we want to get to little Kamala real quick, or? You want,
a little bit more
Bernie.
before we get to
Johnny's
Kamala.
feeling more cowbell and more burn.
Yeah, we
Let's
need
do
to
it.
get this point across here.
One follow-up to that question, because we've tried to work hard in this campaign, and we've seen you and others do it, to say, yes, Trump is the problem, extremist Republicans, but for the last 40, 50 years, we've seen Democrats not even say the word poverty. We've seen Democrats have elections and have primary campaigns and only talk about race when it's cultural, not talk about things like voter suppression and then connect that to the poverty. And so the question we ask every candidate is, in 2016, there were 26 presidential debates primary in the general election. 30 million people in poverty, 43.5% of the country, not one debate was named as a debate to address poverty. We had less voting rights today than we had 50 years ago because of what happened with Shelby. Not one debate was dedicated to systemic racism, starting with voter suppression. We've asked every candidate, will your candidacy push for, and how will you do it, to say to all of the corporate media, we need some debates, at least one, and this is not a black debate, it's an American debate, where we address in that debate systemic racism, policy racism, poverty, ecological devastation, militarism as a whole, so that America can see these intersectional injustices and how they are hurting all of us. Will your campaign push for that? Because we need not a forum just in here, but a full televised debate on those issues.
Hold on for a second.
I just want to say that the Convo Couch would like to start a petition, have you sign it, for the Convo Couch to host this debate, the non-mainstream media debate for all those issues, that Reverend, and I call him Dr. Cornel West, Reverend Barber, those are my two heroes, because they talked about these same things at the same time. And the last time the debates, nobody would even say poverty. They weren't even talking about this. I was waiting for Barack Obama to say these things, to talk about these things during his last campaign, but he never did, fam.
I'm waiting for MSNBC, CNN, or some pundits out there to make this, to call Reverend Barber a racist, because if those words were spoken by someone that's not him, it would completely be taken as that. And that's he's literally just telling you, like, come on, cut it out. We just need to focus on really how the Democrats tokenize people of color and tokenize the black vote and tokenize the Latino vote. And they do this time and time again. And frankly, we're sick and tired of it. And this is why I don't vote for based on a gender or based on a race.
Yeah.
It's based on the policies that these people are pushing. And nobody has been pushing domestic policy like that or been an activist tying himself to a woman ever like Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, the Rev is for money. He stood with Clinton. I don't know about that, Diana Ibanez, maybe after the primaries and whatnot. And I don't know about that. Dr. Reverend Barber is awesome.
The whole point is his message is on point.
And let me tell you something about this message, too, as well. He's also saying vote blue no matter who doesn't mean shit. He talked about the Democrats, they had power for a long time, and they couldn't even say poverty. So unless Democrats are talking about the issues, unless they're getting in the streets and marching with the people, unless they're being an activist themselves, and unless they have a good history of not just hiding like somebody like Elizabeth Warren did, when it came to Standing Rock, but wants to go and take a test, then you can't trust them, then you don't vote blue. It's got to be about policy and the people. Could we listen to what Bernie Sanders says, my man?
You want a short answer to that question? Yes, of course.
Yes.
All right, and the answer is many people are giving up on politics. A lot of poor people are giving up on politics. Why do they give up on politics? because they never hear the issues, whether it's systemic racism, whether it's voter suppression, whether it is working for $9 an hour, whether it's not having health care, not having child care. They don't hear those issues being discussed. And I think your point is that we have to bring those issues that make sense, that are the issues, the life and death issues that people face. Let me just mention something. I don't know if anybody here knows this. The disparity in life expectancy in this country between rich and poor is 15 years. If you are wealthy in a community here in Washington, D.C., the likelihood is, on average, you're going to live 15 years longer than if you were living in a low-income community, and that is, by and large, a racial issue as well. How, as a nation, can we tolerate wealthy people living 15 years longer than poor people? Those are the issues that have got to be discussed from a racial perspective, from a moral perspective, and from an economic perspective.
Boom.
All right,
Drops
let's
mic.
throw to the audience. We have Reverend Nancy.
Look who you see over there.
Ooh, that's Joyanne Reed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
She was actually relatively tame.
She was pretty cool. And I guess you got to give some props to MSNBC, but, I'm not giving them props. They just did this because they knew they'd get great ratings from it today and a lot of followers. We want to thank all you people who did come over to the CONVO couch. We have to wrap this up shortly, unfortunately. I have to go work today, fam. But do you want to say anything about that last bit from Bernie Sanders? Because he just keeps hitting it on the nose, everything he says.
Constantly, he's just repeating the same message. Like, we just have to focus on policy. For instance, all races suffer when we don't have Medicare for all. We need Medicare for all. So why am I, as a Latina, or why is someone else as a black man going to vote for Kamala Harris, who is going to flip-flop on that, who isn't really going to stick to it? Why am I going to vote for a woman as a woman just because they're a woman if they're not offering me Medicare for all? They don't care about my body as much as they say they do. We have to continue looking at actions over their words.
Yeah. Kamala Harris, I think we can just show a really quick clip if we have it.
Yeah.
She just really sunk. She didn't, there's
Well, first of all, people left too.
Yeah, she's just not genuine at all. She's so full of shit. I don't know why this woman is
She's
even
smart.
running,
She's a great speaker, but she's not genuine.
What is that enough? How far can you hide? So
Johnny?
On the Facebook, on the live stream, people were just straight roasting Kamala. Everyone was like talking about her. Even Lawrence Steiner got in there, was putting out facts, and Bob TV was on there too. We were talking.
Yeah. I love Bob TV too, man. That's awesome. If you have a chance, Bob TV. I saw that, Johnny, it went from like 260 following Bernie Sanders down to like 120 on the live stream when Kamala Harris went on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was like 260 people watching Bernie, and then as soon as Kamala came on.
But somehow she's more popular with people.
Yeah,
in the South.
In the South.
Yeah.
Nah. Not buying it.
Not
buying it, fam.
Do you want to get to the Elizabeth Warren stuff real quick, or?
Yeah. Well, did you just play this really quick, the Kamala Harris thing, just so we can?
Let me see
if you have it. If you don't, then we can just skip it. But she did pretty terrible.
The lie that we.
Well, basically, let me just summarize it. She talked about how she is a law enforcement, has been for the demilitarization of the police. But she literally is a cop. Like, she's worked with the law enforcement to actually punish people more for crimes.
Look it up.
As a prosecutor, look it up. And I just posted it on my Facebook.
Yeah.
Literally her entire record on crime, which is atrocious, especially against people of color.
I just think we got some great stuff, that you can go back and you can watch our Tulsi Gabbard and Modi video. Still holds today to the people who are still trying to continue that narrative.
Yeah.
You can go back to the Kamala Harris show about how we explained that she was a cop and everything she did. It's a long laundry list. But for you, all you have to do is go to the convocouch.com and search for the Kamala video and Convo Couch YouTube's. My bad, not the Convo Couch.
Fam, let me just wrap this up with two pictures. One, I got the Elizabeth Warren one. Is this one? Okay, so Elizabeth Warren does not have a section on healthcare in her website. If you go to the website, you can literally look, and it says middle class, rebuilding the middle class, strengthen our democracy, equal justice under the law, a foreign policy for all. But it doesn't say anything about healthcare. And I wonder why. That's not there. gee, maybe because she's backtracking and trying to figure out which is it, because she's been going back and forth on Medicare for all, and she hasn't, it's not up there. It's not up there. Maybe she's rebuilding it. I don't know. But that what I'm looking at is how she's being propped up by the media now all of a sudden, and how she actually on air backtracked from Medicare for all.
What a coincidence.
And so now her website is actually following that. And that just tells you everything, fam. And a lot of people want to gloss over that. Medicare for all is people dying. It's not something you can gloss over.
Yeah.
And one last thing before we go, our friends Todd and Melissa got us a little picture of just how much Bernie was polling at 4%. Like we said,
Right there.
I put it on the right there. There it is. And also he wasn't not only polling at 4%, and they skipped him. The poll was heavier on over people earning $50,000 or more than the previous primary exit polls. 429 black voters were asked, and Bernie was still the favorite among young voters, and the total for the entire poll was 933 people. So first of all, they didn't include only black voters, and the poll was for only 933 people, which isn't that much, but he was still more popular with the youth vote, which tells you this is a
and over 55,000 a year in South Carolina, nevertheless, too, as well. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And not even looking at poor, once again. And they put this up. Well, they're at the Poor People's Campaign. He's slaying it. And at the same time, on MSNBC, they're showing this fucking Fugazi poll that is lean to people making $55,000 a year or more. Hey, I don't even make $55,000 a year, and I live in fucking California. So you could just see how they're tainting these polls. Once again, the press is in on it. Don't watch the mainstream media. And somebody said, hey, you guys watch mainstream media. Thank God, because you can do it for me, because I can't stand it. We can't stand it either. We just peeked at this because we were watching it from Facebook.
And it's good to watch it sometimes for us to do like the research movie. And like to counteract what they're saying, not on purpose, but because it's a lie. Yeah. So thank you guys for watching.
I'm Pasta Jardula.
I'm Fiorella. Convo out.
For Johnny Opossum,
Thank
Convo
you,
out.
Johnny.